Wild Magic is, well, wild. In this video today, I'm going to combine two uncommon subclasses into a really fun and thematic build for not just Gale, but any character looking to take Barbarian in a different direction. We'll use the innate rage abilities of the Wild Magic Barbarian to turn them into a heavy damage dealer, a spell slot battery for your casting classes, and a range fire damage dealer leveraging the 4 elements monk spells that can be cast while enraged. It's a really cool build that I think you guys will enjoy. But if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. So with that being said, the build is very straightforward. You'll be taking 9 levels into Wild Magic Barbarian, and then the final 3 levels into 4 Elements Monk. You can break that progression up by going 5 into Barbarian for your extra attack, 3 into 4 Elements for some spells, and then 4 more into Barbarian. Both will work just fine, just depends on if you want to get your spells up and running immediately or if you're fine holding out. The benefit to holding out is that at level 9, you'll be able to recharge the spell slots of your casters versus having to wait to do that. That's the entire gist of this video, and that's the too long didn't watch of the entire thing. So if that's all you wanted to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to enjoying your time in Baldur's Gate 3 with your pet nuke, Gale. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. Each one of those things does help me out in a huge way if you found this video helpful. I've gone from something like 89% to 80% unsubscribed viewership because of you guys. If you need help with any other subject in Baldur's Gate 3, or if you're excited about Dragon's Dogma 2, check out my playlist linked below and at the end of the video. Let's get started here on my ultimate Wild Magic Gale build for Baldur's Gate 3. Jumping into character creation, it's time to make your character. Now, I built this build in mind with me wanting to use it onto Gale to supplement my main character that was a Barded. You don't need to do that. You can just simply go with a custom character and do this how you want. So we're still going to go through those options. And I think that the big standout one here is going to be Half-Orc. We're going to be using a melee weapon. We're going to be a barbarian. And I think that the capability of adding savage attacks, when you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, you deal an extra dice of weapon damage, is just going to lean in so well and so juicy to this character. You also get relentless endurance, so the character is just going to stay up. They're going to be really hard to kill. I really like this option for the barbarian that we have in mind, but again, this is a single player narrative game. Go with whatever you want. Gith is a really cool one here because you'll get access to astral knowledge. So if this is going to be your main character, if you've never played a barbarian as your main character or face character, you owe it to yourself to give it a shot once, because barbarian has a lot of really fun conversational options to kind of forego the fact that they probably don't have a ton of charisma. They just kind of rage cage through situations where they could otherwise use like some kind of like verbal finesse. So it's a really fun situation. And if you combine that with the Gith, which has a ton of unique dialogue options in this game, it's very fun as well. Getting access to Enhanced Leap, Mage Hand, as well as a free Misty Step as a Gith is Misty Step as a Gith is really fun. The Dwarf, and of course going into the Dwagar, is another one of my big favorite ones here because you get a free cast of Enlarge as a Dwagar Dwarf. And keep in mind that Enlarge can be cast while you are enraged because it's a class action lawsuit. It's not an actual spell. And if I'm wrong on that, feel free to correct me in the comments below, but from everything I've seen and everything I've looked at, everything I've tested, it should work when you are enraged. But I don't know, patches freak me out, and then they change all my information in a day. Drow I'll always love because I have access to Fey Ancestry, which you'll get as any kind of half-elf or elf as well. Keep those all things in mind. Gnomes and halflings just make really funny barbarians for me, especially the Strongheart Halfling, which gets advantage on saving throws against poison, and the Halfling Luck, so it can reroll ability checks, attack rolls, saving throws, all really fun things. Dragonborn can use their breath attacks while enraged, so this is a really cool way to lean into a whole new form of fire damage. Specifically fire because we're building that into this build, but you could, I mean, you can go red here. I think the other one is gold. Yeah, red, gold, and I think bronze. Nope, brass. Yeah, red, gold, and brass are your fire element Dragonborn. So you can go with any one of them, and you can use this again because it says class action, not spell. So you can use these things while you are silenced or enraged. So you can have fun with these, and these scale with your level. It can make for a lot of fun with this build, and I strongly recommend them as your option. For Tiefling, I would not choose the Zariel Tiefling because the options you get cantrip wise or spell wise from the Zariel Tiefling, you can't use when enraged, and they'll shut off if you enrage, so it's just kind of not as fun. But if you want to go with a Zariel Tiefling, there's nothing stopping you. Into your class, you're going to start off with Barbarian here. You just go half orc. Look at that Chad. Always a really good option. And then good option. It's the point of the whole video. You got to go start with Barbarian. You could start with Monk, but I think if you're approaching this from any kind of utility and fun, I think starting with Barbarian is the right way to go, because you need your first 5 levels first to get access to extra attack, and we're not doing that with Monk. So it just takes forever for your character's power curve to kind of fall in line. With your background, please, as always, this is a single-player narrative game. Make a narrative for your character. Make a little role play for your character, you know? Are you some sage who, if you're playing Gale, Gale is sage. Have you some sage that has kind of like fallen to the wild magic that he read into, and that is what infected the character, becoming some sort of wild magic barbarian? Are you a criminal, a charlatan, a guild artisan, a noble that has all taken part of the same exact things I just kind of talked about? Whatever thing you want to go with, please, by all means, I encourage you to do so, because this background is going to influence the inspirations you get for your character for your rerolls. Now, as always, min-max option is Guild Artisan, because Insight and Persuasion are 2 very strong skills in this game. You'll use them all the time, and on top of it, you cannot get access to them as a Barbarian because your options here are very slim. You get Athletics, you get I think you get Perception natively, Survival, and then you'll get Animal Handling and Nature, which are fun, but if you have Speak with Animal, you'll never use Animal Handling. Animal Handling is a conversational skill you use for animals if you don't have Speak with Animals. If you have Speak with Animals, you just use Deception, Intimidation, Persuasion, what have you. And the nice thing about choosing a half-orc is you just get Intimidation by default, which I think you also get by default if you're playing, it's an option if you are playing a Barbarian in general. But Intimidation is a very fun way to play Barbarian because it just leans into the character class. I definitely recommend you go with that conversational skill here. But go with whatever thing makes sense here. I would just definitely make sure you pick up Athletics. That way you can just shove things, push them around if you so wish. Perception is going to be really good for you as well. Survival can be nice to just see the little places to dig, but definitely choose Intimidation or some form of conversational if this is going to be your front-facing main character. Let's talk about those ability scores now. Now, whether you are playing as Gale or as your main character, the 2 things we're going to increase here are our Strength and our Constitution. And we're going to bring those to 16 using our bonus points. And that's kind of where we hang out when it comes to the big things. Remember, we are Barbarian. We are a Barbarian. I kind of like saying we are Barbarians, kind of go like we are Legion. And with that, you're going to get your bonus to your armor class through Constitution as well as Dexterity. So we're going to bring our Dexterity up to 14. This is going to give us a bonus to our armor class and as well to our initiative over here with the +2, which is always kind of good. Now, for our other capability, we want to focus on some Wisdom. That Wisdom up to 12 is going to be quite juicy for us because Wisdom is also going to help us when it comes to using our Monk mechanics. Now, Monk has an unarmored defense that uses Wisdom just in the same way that Barbarian has an unarmored defense that uses Constitution. You cannot stack those 2. They don't work in conjunction. The game will choose the higher of the 2 and use that one for you in conjunction with your Dexterity. And I'll show that off in the actual character once we jump into the screen. But this is your character. If you wanted to focus more on charisma, you could. You don't have to worry about things like spell save DC rolls with the 4 elements monk. So having a bunch more wisdom's not going to be that huge. But getting it here is going to help out with other portions of monk that you can kind of lean into and use items to pull from that to get you a little bit more of an advantage. And also this helps you resist any kind of charm effects or anything that would CC your character. This is what I would go with my ability scores 16, 14, 16, and 12 with Strength, Dex, Constitution, and Wisdom. Those are going to be your big focal points. Intelligence and Charisma, that's for other classes. You don't need that as a Barbarian. So jumping into the progression for this character, let's have some fun. Again, this is going to be pretty straightforward. You can do 5 levels into Barbarian, split off and go into Monk, and then more levels into Barbarian after that. But I think just going full on ham into Barbarian is the way to go, because that's going to allow us to get online all of the battery, the spell slot recharge of the Barbarian. So we'll go ahead and go level 2. This is going to give us Reckless Attack, of course, and Danger Sense, so advantage on dex saving throws against trap spells and surfaces, which is nice. You can dodge any kind of like fireballs, stuff like that. Into our next level, we choose our subclass, and it is going to be Wild Magic. So, you know, we get the Berserker Frenzy, we get the Wild Heart, Bestial Heart, which gives us a very special type of rage. But the Wild Magic rage is unique in that it gives us access to a special kind of wild magic rage. In a rage that releases all the magic roiling inside of you and causing a random magical effect. Gain resistance to physical damage and advantage on strength checks and saves. So I was going to show you every single effect of what rage wild magic does, but I think half the fun of playing any wild magic character, either sorcerer or barbarian, is discovering what they do. So I'll just give you a little bit of a hint here. You'll press this button. And there's really only two semi-negative ones. They just kind of do a quick little shot of damage. Unlike for the Wild Magic Sorcerer, where you turn everyone into like bunnies or stuff like that. But this can give everyone teleport around you. This can give everyone an armor class bonus around you. You can sprout black tentacles that hurt people around you. You've got all these things that are going to happen when you press this button. And very few of them are negative. And the Wild Magic Barbarian is actually, in my opinion, slept on between the three subclasses. Granted, of course, the Berserker is your big focus with throwing, and Wild Heart is actually really goddamn good. But Wild Magic is actually a lot of fun, and we're going to go through why this gets even cooler. And with Wild Magic, we get Magic Awareness, so anyone within range adds their proficiency bonus. Remember, that scales up from 2 to 3 to 4 as you play, to saving throws against spells, which is really nice. It only lasts for 1 turn, but it is a bonus action. So you can do this, do all of your damage, and then pop this before a whole round of combat with a bunch of maybe like Gith spellcasters or whatever it is. And now we go into level 4 for our feat conversation. So let's talk about those toes. So when it comes to your feat, which is just weird to say out loud, you've got some options here. Ability improvement is always a staple, just jamming some points here into strength and having a ball. You can really get away here by using a ton of strength elixirs throughout the game, Hill Giant or Cloud Giant. If you don't want to do that, then by all means, just don't do it. It's really not that crucial to have a 20 million strength. It's really fun. It's really crunchy. It's really cool, but don't feel like you need to jump down that route. You can just simply put the points here into strength though if you want. Another really good route is alert, but the reason I don't recommend alert with a barbarian is at level 8 or 9, you get a diet version of alert. Rather than +5 bonus to initiative, you get a +3 bonus to initiative, and you can't be surprised. So you might as well not waste the feat point here when you have one that's pretty similar to it already. So I would not necessarily recommend it, but you can take it and respec later if you want. I definitely recommend, though, Great Weapon Master, because we are going to be using a two-handed weapon for this build. Land a critical hit allows you to do another follow bonus action melee attack, which is really good, and it adds 10 damage at the cost of -5 to attack roll. If you get this feat early, I recommend you put this onto your bar, your action bar from the passive section, and toggle it on and off, because you'll get very frustrated at the beginning of the game trying to do attack rolls that have like a 60% to hit. Remember though, you're a barbarian, and you have your ability to add advantage to all of your attack rolls at the cost of an advantage towards you. So this is a great way to offset the penalty of Great Weapon Master. And the other big focus one is going to be Savage Attacker. When making melee weapon attacks, you roll your damage dice twice and use the highest result. So if you're playing a half-orc, you have Savage Criticals and Savage Attackers. It's so awesome to add these two together. You just do some big, crunchy numbers. And it is a rare recommendation that I don't usually make is Tough. Your hit point maximum increases by 2 for every level you have gained. What's nice about this is that the hit point scaling for Barbarian is the highest of any class in the game. So if you get Tough plus the Amulet of Constitution, whatever it's called, that puts your Constitution at 23, you will have just shy of 200 hit points on the character. And that's really fun. It's really cool to throw the character in there, let them absorb a bunch of physical damage and go crazy with all their capabilities. So that's what I would recommend feat-wise. For right now, we'll go with Great Weapon Master and probably pick up either Ability Improvement or Savage Attacker later, depending on how I feel as I go through this. So we'll go with Great Weapon Master right now and progress forward. So into level 5, let's go through the end kind of portions here. We now have extra attack. So the character's damage is going to increase. You should get this kind of towards the midpoint of Act 1, later points of Act 1, depending on what you've done. But you'll also get fast movement. So your movement speed's increased by 10 feet while not wearing heavy armor, which is always great. As we jump up another level here, and as I was saying, man, like look at that hit point increase. It's pretty massive per level, right? We get more of our rage charges, but the big thing now turns on for our Wild Magic Barbarian. We have this bolstering magic boon. You or an ally receive a plus 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and ability checks. What I don't like about this is it's going to cost you an action, and it is only in melee range. So you have to run up to the character you want to buff. It does last for 10 turns, so that is kind of cool. But you get these things as well. You or an ally recover a level 1 spell slot. You or an ally recover a level 2 spell slot. Now, you can use these in the heat of battle, for sure. By all means, go do so if you'd like. But I want you to think of these as a way to kind of extend your casting character's shelf life outside of their short or long rests. So for example, if you're playing with a barded in, like I am in my playthrough, that is a 2 paladin 10 bard character, then I can use this character to basically turn on more of the spell slots that I have expended without having to long rest. That's how you should look at this. Don't think of this as like, oh, it's in the middle of combat, dude. Why am I going to use a melee touch action ability to restore a spell slot? You can in a pinch, but like I said, you want to use these more out of combat to really bolster your party. Let's keep going. Level 7 here gets us this feature. Oh, there it is, Feral Instinct. This is the diet alert. So you get 3 bonus initiative and can't be surprised. 8 is going to get us our second feat. And you know what? I'm going to go ability improvement into strength. You can do whatever you want here. Savage Attacker is probably the best for like min-maxi of actual damage, but I'm just going to go with more strength. Like I said too, you have so many ways to increase your strength, either via weapons like the Mighty Cloth, armor like the Mighty Cloth, using elixirs, whatever it is. If you want to go that route, then go with Savage Attacker and just have your elixir improve your strength. I don't like to rely on potions a ton. It feels kind of cheesy over time, so do whatever is best for you. Then level 9, we get improved criticals here. So when you land a critical hit, you roll an extra damage die as well as a normal additional critical dice. This makes half work, again, even more disgusting if you're not using it on Gale. And then lastly, we get bolstering magic level 3 spell slots. Level 3 spell slots are arguably the best value in the game when it comes to spell slots. They have some of the best spells in the level 3 category. So you get a lot, and they have usually 3 or 4 spell slots on their characters by the time they get to their max. So this is a great way to keep that longevity going for a lot of those casters. So now that we've got these 9 levels into Barbarian, we are going to pivot into Monk. And Monk's going to give us some really cool capabilities outside of just simply, being a monk. Dexterous attacks is cool. Death strikes is cool. All this stuff is fun, but we're really going to focus on these things. So now our bonus actions, Step of the Wind Disengage, Step of the Wind Dash, and Patient Defense, we can now kind of turn our bonus action to a little bit more of an oomph, like if we didn't get a critical hit or didn't kill someone, so we can't use the Great Weapon Mastery bonus action attack, we can use these to cover the distance. And remember, you jump no longer requires a bonus action when you use Step of the Wind. It's very nice here. And we get an increase to our movement speed as a monk as well, which just plays so well with the character. Into Monk level 3, we get Wear the 4 Elements. So we also get Deflect Missile, which is cool. You can use a reaction to reduce the damage from a ranged weapon attack, plus your Dex modifier, plus your Monk level. If the damage is reduced to 0, you use a key point to deflect the missile, which is always kind of fun. But we get Harmony of Fire and Water, so while not in combat, you regain half your key points, which is cool because we don't have a ton of key points. But we will use our key points for Boom, Boom, and Dealer's Choice really after this. But these are the 2 big ones. So Fangs of the Fire Snake. Why this one is important. You hit your foe from afar. Your next melee attack deals an extra 1 to 4 fire damage. This is a class action. And when you use it, you can actually follow up with a bonus action or another extra attack to do stuff. And I'll show you how this all works. And keep this in mind too. These spells also trigger Unarmed Strike. So you could use Fangs of the Fire Snake. It turns on an additional 1 to 4 fire damage, which is part of this build. And now your fists in your bonus action, an additional Unarmed Strike in your bonus action, your bonus action from using your Great Weapon Mastery, whatever it is, can all be triggered into that 1 to 4 fire damage. So you get this as a nice little buff. Now, Water Whip pulls the target towards you to knock it prone. Or knock it prone, which is really strong. It does cost you 2 key points versus it's just costing you 1, but it's a great way to close distance. It does a little bit of bludgeoning damage here, and you can possibly knock things prone, so you can go to town on them. Then outside of that, have fun, choose whatever you want. You can go with basically the chromatic orb if you want to go with something like that. You can go with shaping of the ice. I like it because you just make an ice cube you can climb. It's goofy and fun. You can push things and knock them off balance. Fist of the Broken Air is really nice. It knocks things prone, but it pushes them back. You kind of want the opposite of that, but it's really good here. I also really like Sweeping Cinder Strikes. Expel fire from your outstretched hands and ignite anything flammable. Since you are already kind of working in the department of fire anyway, I like this one a lot. And what I do like about it as well is targets still take half damage if they save. So this is kind of a nice benefit to this. Also, you can go Touch of the Storm, which is a single key point, and it has advantage on creatures with metal armor, which is going to be prevalent throughout the rest of the game, right? So go with whatever the third one kind of sits well with you, and that completes the character. Let's put it all together and show stuff off. So without having gone into much of the kind of under the hood of what the items are like, we have all the fun things that we get from all the stuff we have. So we have all of our bolstering, so we can bolster all of up to level 3 spell slots. We have the magic boon thing that we can do. That does last for 10 turns, which is pretty cool. So you can actually use this before you go into a fight. Lasting for 10 turns means you'll probably lose 2-3 turns off of it before you trigger the fight. You've got your patient defense, all your situations over here that allow you to use your bonus action for some key points. And then you've got your rage, wild magic, and all that kind of fun stuff. And like I was saying too, you know, these fangs, the fire snake, the sweeping cinder strikes, these water whips, these are class actions. So you can do them while silenced, while enraged, whatever you want. And if you've never heard Gale enrage, it is a hilarious sound. So this is definitely going to be a really fun class and a very fun way to approach this character that I think you'll really like, and it breaks the standard template of the barbarian. But let's go into how the items are really going to lean into this. The only item I actually don't have I want to talk about is the Everburn Greatsword. You'll get that on the Nautiloid ship in the beginning of the game. You just have to use command on the Cambion General, and he'll drop the sword and you take it. You don't absolutely need it. You can use a thermodynamic axe in Act 1. There's a lot of different ways to get heat-dealing damage axes and swords in the beginning, but I think it's a really great weapon for this build that'll last you all the way until you get the Halberd of Vigilance, until you come back around to other weapons later. So I don't have that, unfortunately, in this playthrough, so here's the picture of it, but definitely try to get this at the beginning of the game. But outside of that, let's go through the items we do have. And we're going to start off with our weapons. So Halberd of Vigilance is what you will eventually get after you kind of progress to this beginning-ish portion of Act 2, right? You get to Moonrise Towers, you can buy this from the vendor there, Halberd of Vigilance. It's amazing. You get a bonus to initiative and advantage on perception rolls. You make an attack roll as a reaction. You make it with advantage. So a lot of really cool stuff that you can get here. And it does force damage. So it's very, very, very good. You'll use this all the way until you get one of the other better two-handed weapons in Act 3, which brings us to our Act 3 weapons. There's a Sword of Chaos that you'll get from Saravok, which is a really good one. I like it because it's just a free heal and it looks cool as hell. You can also get Balduran Giant Slayer, which is such a strong weapon. It's such a strong weapon. It gives you giant form. This weapon grants you advantage on attack rolls against large, huge, and gargantuan creatures, which is going to be a huge portion of the creatures you fight in Act 3. And on a hit, double the damage from your strength modifier. So if you're using an elixir of Cloud Giant Strength, it's a ton of damage. But the weapon I'm focusing on for this build is the Hellfire Great Axe. Is it better than the Balduran Greatsword or Giant Slayer? Probably not, no. But I like it more for this build. It fits the theme I want to have for it. So that's what I'm going with. Whenever you deal damage with this weapon, you gain 2 turns of heat. And here's how heat works. Engulfed by a Vengeful Fire takes 1 to 4 fire damage each turn, but can use heat convergence. What's nice about this is rage will shut off if you have not attempted to do damage in a turn or taken damage in a turn. This guarantees that no matter how far away your character is, maybe they can't reach stuff with their bow or their fangs of the fire fist or whatever, this ensures that you're kind of always enraged. And then you use heat convergence here. The next time you deal fire damage, you deal an additional 1 fire damage for every turn of heat remaining. So you can stack this up and have a lot of fun. There's a lot of items in the game that generate heat for you. It's just a really cool way to do a lot of heat damage. But one of the cool things too is this ability, Hell Flame Cleave. You spew hellish flames and strike your foes. On save, targets still take half damage. Hellfire ignores resistance and immunity to fire damage. So you can see this does plus 2d6 fire damage. That plus 1d6 is coming from other sources. So you're going to do a ton of fire damage with this weapon. 21 to 52, that's absolutely crispy, and it ignores resistances and immunity, and they'll still take half damage. So you can have a lot of fun with this weapon, doing a lot of really cool things. Now, you can get the Drake Throat Glaive, which I don't have in this playthrough, unfortunately, but that Drake Throat Glaive would allow you to imbue any weapon with fire damage. You'll get that in Act 2 as well. I do recommend it just to cast on a weapon and then just put the Drake Throat Glaive back in your inventory or back in your stash. Then that weapon has got fire damage until you long rest. So that's a way to kind of get around this till you get the Hellfire Great Axe. But those are your weapons. Oh, also, the Drakefire Shortbow, definitely recommend. Gives you resistance to fire and cold damage, and you get a free cast of haste, which is really good. And it lasts until a long rest, so you'll have to kind of do this once per long rest, but it's a really great weapon to just have on the character. Gives them a lot of really good immunity, since you already will have immunity to physical damage when you enrage. Now, outside of that, what does our armor look like? So let's start with the helmet. We have the Helldusk helmet. You can see in magical and ordinary darkness, you cannot be blinded. You get a +2 bonus to saving throws against spells. You can't be crit, and you get Immolating Gaze, another fire ability. Sear and frighten the target with nothing but your glower. You deal 2d8 fire damage against burning creatures. So if you've already lit someone on fire with your axe, you can use this, and it's really nice. It will frighten them, which is always lovely, and it can recycle every short rest, which is really, really cool. Keep in mind, though, it's a 30-foot range, and it costs you an action, so you'd probably want to use this in lieu of melee damage if you're out of range, right? Like, oh man, I can't reach him, and I won't be able to reach him this turn. I could do things with the Fire Fist and waste a key point, but this just allows me to shoot some eye lasers at him and do some damage. In the meantime, though, use any helmet you can find. The Horns of the Berserker are cool. You get +2 bonus to attack rolls when attacking creatures have already taken damage. Melee attacks will deal an extra 2 necrotic. If you don't deal any damage, so you take damage. The Mask of Soul Perception is always really cool because you get bonus to attack, initiative, and perception checks. Even something like the... No, that's... Why did I have the Hood of the Weave on this character? Even the Bone Spike helmet, that's what I meant. When you rage, hostile creatures in a 10-foot radius must succeed a Wisdom saving throw or take psychic damage. The target receives half damage on a save. It does increase your intimidation by 2, so it's really cool for the actual face character. And it gives you menacing attack melee, which is a really cool way to frighten targets and do some additional damage. It's a great way to do stuff, but I kind of like the other helmets more. More often than not, I'm not usually around things when I enrage, so it's just kind of the way I play the character, but it's a really good helmet nonetheless. Next, though, we have our, I'll just go down the list. We have our cloak. The cloak slot can really be whatever you want. You can use the Flesh Melter's cloak. The Cloak of Protection here is really good. There is a heat cloak. I'm not a huge fan of it because I think it's off of spell casting, but the Cloak of Protection is just a great +1 to your armor class. Definitely think that's one of the best routes to take here. A lot of the other crit stuff is based off of like being obscured, or if you went with the Dark Urge. So if you, you have to actually lean to that direction of the character in order to get those things. The armor, Bone Spike Garb is the one I'm going to recommend. You gain 15 temp hit points when you enrage, and you reduce all incoming damage by 2. When the wearer is struck by a melee attack, the attacker takes 6 piercing damage. I think it's the best thing I think it's the best in slot for this build. But up to this point, or up to the point in which you get maybe the Mighty Cloth, use armor. Use like actual medium or heavy armor. Not heavier, sorry, you're a barbarian. Use medium armor. Like my playthrough, I'm using a +1 breastplate on Gale. That's fine. Just use armor. I know it's a barbarian, but your constitution and your dexterity aren't high enough to outclass the AC you're going to get from just straight up armor in the very beginning of the game. So just use any old armor you find that you like and just stick with that until you get maybe something like the Mighty Cloth. You gain Bull Strength and increase your strength score by 2 to a max of 20. You cannot be pushed against your will and have an advantage on saving throws against being restrained. Bull Strength is also going to increase your carry capacity. It doubles it, right? So it's awesome. I used it all the way up until I got the Bone Spike Garb. Outside of that, though, you could even go with the Vest of Soul Rejuvenation, which is a monk robe. The wearer can use a reaction to make an unarmed strike against any attacker that misses them. So this is a cool way to just kind of use more of your unarmed attack abilities if you want to lean into that direction. And you can do that too with some of the items we bring up later. But into our glove slot, we're going to use the Hell Dust Gloves. You gain +1 bonus to spell save and attack rolls. That's not crucial here. The next one is. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 6 fire damage. That is what is so cool. And you get another ranged fire capability, Rays of Fire. It's 3 rays of fire, each ray dealing 3 to 18 fire damage. It's just a cool way to do damage. It's also scaling with my strength. Do you see that? It says attack roll. Ooh, let's press this button. This little button right there is telling me that the spellcasting ability is strength, which I've got plenty of. So we know that I can actually do quite a bit of damage with these Hell Dust Gloves that other characters maybe couldn't do. So it's really cool to have that capability, and it replenishes on a short rest. So it's up and at 'em quite a bit. In the earlier portions of the game, though, get something like the I thought it was like thermodynamic. No, it's thermo-arcanic gloves. Whenever you deal fire damage, you gain 2 turns of heat. So you can actually use these two in conjunction for a long time with the axe, and just get 4 turns of heat every time you swing your blade once. Then use your heat convergence and get a ton of damage out of that. Bracers of Defense, just a +2 bonus to your armor class as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield. The Flawed Hell Dust Gloves, remember you get these using the Infernal Iron in Act 2. These are nice. They look like they're armor, but they're not. Your weapon attacks deal an additional 1 to 4, right? It's the same exact Hell Dust Gloves, it's just a flawed version of them. So you don't get the Rays of Fire, but you get all the other benefits in a smaller fire damage thing. Into Act 3, you'll get the Martial Exertion Gloves, which are cool. They do damage to you, but you get a whole extra, you gain an additional attack per turn and do double your movement speed. So it can do a lot of damage, but in my experience, it's never really rolled that high. So it's just a nice way to get an additional kind of bit of damage. But lastly, the probably best in slot outside of the Hell Dust Gloves would be the Bone Spike Gloves, because your attacks ignore resistance to slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning damage. I think it's going to be kind of dealer's choice in how they want to flex into whatever damage type they want to do. Just have fun with it. For our boots, we've got the Bone Spike boots. You have +1 bonus to armor class and saving throws as long as you're not wearing armor or holding a shield. Your jump distance is increased by 5, and you get Brutal Leap, which is cool because it can knock things prone. It's very, very nice way to kind of leap into combat and hopefully knock them prone, which then gives you advantage on your hits. As far as some other boots, though, you can start off really early with the Line Breaker boots. Once per turn, when you dash, you gain Wrath, which is cool. Even the boots of Uninhibited Kushigo, the wearer deals an additional damage equal to their wisdom modifier with unarmed strikes. We can lean into unarmed strikes. Remember that, man. We've got Flurry of Blows. So, all right, we did our main attack. We did all of our melee weapon damage, including a bonus swing, right? Well, I still got a bonus action. Well, just go ahead and use Flurry of Blows. Go ahead and add in that damage. And if you use like the Hell Dust Gloves, you're getting both of the benefits here. The 1d6 goes to your weapon, but then Flurry of Blows gets the 1d6 necrotic and a chance to inflict bleeding. So you can have a lot of fun with these kind of gloves and stuff like that that add these dynamics to both avenues. And this gives me my wisdom modifier to unarmed strikes. So I get a +1. It's not much, but we didn't put a lot of wisdom in here to begin with. Then the other boots here are the Hell Dusk boots you'll get from Gortash. Cannot be forcibly moved by foes, spells, or actions, and you ignore the effects of difficult terrain. When you fail a saving throw, you may use your reaction to succeed instead, and you get this really cool ability called Hell Crawler, where you teleport and do 216 fire damage when you land. It's sick. I love it. It's really cool and crispy for the character. Very, very thematic. What's next? What do we do next? Oh, it's the jewelry. So we have the Amulet of Greater Health is definitely our big focus because we're a barbarian, right? Like look at our AC right now. It's 20. Now it's 17. Put that back on. And I was talking about this earlier, right? We have unarmored defense from both Monk and from Barbarian. You'll see here that I'm only getting the +6 from Constitution because it is the highest of the two. Even though I've got no armor, I don't get any benefit. I'll get a +1 from my wisdom in any way, shape, or form. If I were to swap these two stats, this would say wisdom +6 rather than Constitution. So just keep that in mind here. But this gives me a ton of health, gives me a ton of AC, and advantage on Constitution saving throws, which will never really benefit me, really. Oftentimes this is better on a caster, but I think it just makes this barbarian it just turns them on so many ways, you know. Other options though are the Sentient Amulet for key restoration is the big thing. It's going to help you replenish that key, and you'll get Shatter back, or back, you'll just get Shatter cast of it. The Amulet of Misty Step is a really good early option just to get Misty Step into the character for mobility. The Face Semblance Amulet is an Act 3, but this gives you advantage on Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws. 2 of the 3 of those you have very low stats on, so at least you can try to push yourself through on them. And then lastly, the Amulet of the Harpers is always nice. Advantage on Wisdom saving throws, but it's just a free cast of Shield to knock down any big scary spells. And lastly, for our rings, there is a ring that does heat, and I could not find it in my treasure trove of things. But again, I'm pretty sure it's off of spell casting, and we're not. These don't count as spells, like I said. It says class action, so anything that would trigger on spell cast does not trigger on this. But we have Killer Sweetheart here for crit strikes, and we have got the Ring of Free Action. You ignore the effects of difficult terrain and cannot be paralyzed or restrained. Why I've got Ring of Free Action on this character is I have a ranger in my party. That ranger gets this kind of innately built into them. The monk eventually gets this innately built into them. There's a lot of classes that innately get this kind of into their kit. The barbarian does not. I think it does maybe at like level 11, but it does not. So I want to have that on the character for sure. The Killer Sweetheart is kind of, it just depends on what else is in my party, but you could definitely just go with Crusher's Ring instead for the 10-foot movement range increase. But now that we've gone through all the gear, let's go show this off in combat and how it works. So jumping into combat, let's show off this build, starting with Gale. And if you've never seen Gale in Rage, you are in for a treat, because watch this. It might bug out. Sometimes he actually doesn't make the noise. Nothing like a good hi-ya! And we get our Wild Magic Surge, and this one says, until the end of the rage, flowers and vines sprout around you, doing something. Until the end of the rage, the ground within 7 feet of them is difficult terrain for everyone other than the barbarian having movement speed. This is one of the very few ones that's kind of like, not bad, but I mean bad in the sense that it can affect your characters negatively. Most often than not, it actually affects them positively, which is really cool. But you can see I now have this circle of negative terrain I can just kind of throw onto people. And we've got 2 actions here because I quaffed a potion of swiftness, of speed, to help me out. And we can do something like, okay, Fang's the fire snake right now, and add in our fire damage into this situation. Keep in mind too, you cannot cast Hellflame Cleave because it is a cantrip. You would want to do this before you jump into Enrage, and it was something I forgot to show off here, and we will reload and show that in a second here. But let's go ahead and do this. So we did that, and you'll notice that I can still now do an attack using an extra attack. So let's come up behind this guy, and if you look at this too, we have our 1d6, our 1d6, and our 1d4. So we're doing a lot of fire damage. Let's go up here and just smack this guy. And like I said, remember, you can use this. I would drag. Go to your book. Drag that passive onto your thing. So you can take a look at this and go, okay, we'll keep this on or off. It's a 45%, or shut it off. Okay, 70%, I like that. Or, remember, we're a barbarian. We can use reckless attack and bring it up to 70% with advantage, which we'll try to see how it works. Cool. Of course, it would be a miss in the middle of this video. Why wouldn't it be? It would probably the best for everyone. But I still retain an extra attack to do some extra fun stuff. I don't, of course, have that extra 1d. Oh no, I keep the 1d4 for the whole turn, don't I? I thought it said it's next melee attack. Yeah, well, that's weird. It should not work, but it's gonna work. But we can also do this. We can do a pull or a knock prone. So we can go ahead and use that and knock this guy prone. We could pull this guy over to us and get them right next to us for then maybe we do something like an actual cleave here. So we can have a lot of fun with this axe and doing a bunch of cool stuff. So let's go ahead and try to get that damage online again. All right, so we did a little bit of damage here. Now it's not a ton. It's 24 plus the 6. And the 6 here is going to come from the Hellfire Great Action, the Fangs of the Fire Snake, and we're just doing a little bit more fire damage into everything that we do. And this is kind of why I like this build. It offers me a ton of different ways to do things. And I can use heat convergence whenever I want. All right, now we're going to do even more fire damage, assuming this kicks off, or I could even just use Fangs of the Fire Snake again, whatever I want to do. Go ahead and do miss. Why not? Why wouldn't we just miss? It'll be better if I just bless this character before all this. But we now can just move around and give everyone... My character over here is the next build I'm going to make. Give everyone difficult terrain. So I can have fun with that and kind of keep pushing things around. I can turn off feat convergence because we didn't actually do the damage. And let's go ahead and push this through. Because I didn't talk about our bonus actions, right? Our bonus actions, we've got tons of stuff that we can do with those. We'll let this just kind of push its way through the turn. And I'm actually going to come back once Gale's turns up again. So back into our turn, we saw plenty of stuff that we can do. I can go ahead now and use Fangs the Fire Snake again. And turn on that additional damage. There we go. Turn on our additional damage. We now have our bonus attacks for unarmed strikes here. I can use our flurry of blows. We have a lot of things we can do with all of that fun action. So let's see if we do a little bit of that cleave action here. Let's try to hit, you know what? How many, oh, we got one of those. Let's do this again. Let's go ahead and take a swipe here. I'm actually going to shut this off. It's, of course, going to turn our damage down, but that's fine. And what that did was give me a little bit of heat. That's fine. Take the damage. And we're going to turn on our heat convergence. And I'm going to use our cleave now. Of course, we missed one of them, but 12 and 15, 10 and 16, we've done plenty of damage with that, and our turn's not even up. And we can also wombo combo that additional bonus action into another great weapon master bonus attack here. And there are definite ways that you can increase this damage even further when it comes to all of the heat and all of the fire damage. There are a lot of other mechanics here, like, okay, well, critical hit, slam, fuck this guy. Now remember, critical hitting, and I'm glad we finally got one to jump off. It doesn't just apply to the weapon. It applies to all damage instances of the attack. Meaning, it applies to the weapon damage, but since we have all these things that add in, the fire damage from the Hellfire Great Axe, the Fangs of the Fire Snakes, all this stuff, the Infernal Touch of our gloves, it doubles its damage, right? Not a 1d6, now a 2d6. Not a 1d4, a 2d4. And you can see that multiplied across everything for just a crunchy bit of damage. So it's a real great way to just kind of layer stuff in. And then with those bonus actions, you know what? Now we can add in Flurry of Blows because we've used Fangs of the Fire Snake. So we have 1d4 extra fire damage. And now we have the necrotic damage coming in here from the same gloves that we've got on. Or I could use any one of these to kind of get out of a tight situation, a tight spot. Let's go ahead and do... this guy looks fun. Of course, we missed like one of those, which kind of blows, right? But still, let's assume that this had critical hitted. Critical hitted? This had critted. This would have been, you know, double, double, and double. So we would have doubled all these damage instances. And that is what I think is so fun and cool about this. And we could have used heat convergence there to do a little bit more damage. We just simply can really add up and do all these fun, chaotic things with this build. It's why I really, really like it. Let's jump back in really quick to, before this battle started, to show off very fast the Hellflame Cleave. So jumping back into this, let's really quickly look at the abilities that we could use that we could or could not. Like, for example, these two are cantrips. They say it right there. So we can actually use them right now. But a class action, we can use while enraged. So let's go ahead and do this. I'll show you the Hellflame Cleave. It's so cool, man. Like, look at all that. Look at all that. I mean, it's not a huge amount of damage, right? But it's a whole bunch of little damage numbers that if it crits, and we've talked about before, it does even more. And so Fist Yepson here had 7, 5, 8, and also 15 all the way down here. So a lot of that damage plus the Roiling Hellfire condition too. So he's got this. Inflames from the heart of the Avernus, engulf this entity, inflicting 6 to 36 damage per turn. So even resistance cannot stop such a thing. It's absolutely crunchy. We have the Rays of Fire here too that we could have used this as well. This is a standard spell, so keep that in mind. Let's just go ahead really quickly and use Wild Magic one more time just to show off how funny this is. Ah! And what do we get? What was the random one? Oh, Wild Magic Surge. So now everyone inside of my radius gets a +1 to their AC. And you can see, like I said, Immolating Gaze, just like inland gates will look just like a rate of fire, but this is a class action lawsuit. So I can still use this even though we're enraged. So we can just kind of, who is Cyclops eyes someone. But so fun. So you have all these really fun little tools that the character can take advantage of. A lot of heat, a lot of different damage types, a lot of different things to really jump into. But like I said too, I can jump over to any one of the characters that are using 1, 2, or 3 spell slots and replenish them, turn them back online. I'm a barbarian for all intents and purposes, but I'm leaning into a lot of the really fun things that you get from the Wild Magic kit that I don't think a lot of people look at. And especially too, if I'm playing characters like, this is a paladin right here, that is a cleric right there, that is a warlock. I can replenish those spell slots. I can supplement my character in more of a direct way than just simply being a straight up damage dealing character, which is still just fine. Wild Heart Barbarian is damn fun. And some of the best way to CC or support the party is by killing things sometimes. This allows you to do that while also adding a lot of fun elements into the build. So hopefully this gives you a really good and fun way to play a Wild Magic Barbarian. And if you have any other suggestions for ways to approach this differently, like, hey, you know what? Maybe you take a look at these items rather than going with heat, go with reverberation and use the thunder items here on your Luna and really lean into that level of chaos with the build. You can definitely take that route rather than doing thunder and reverberation or heat and fire. You could have done, I don't know, chill and cold, or you could have done poison stuff or acid stuff. There's a lot of different things that you can lean into with this character that are not armor pieces. Specifically, they don't say armor, so they will work with the barbarian monk character like this. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. The next character will be this dude right here, who is basically like a really cool, like tanky character that can self-heal. And by self-healing turns on a bunch of activatable abilities to make him just an absolute juggernaut. So that'll be the next one. But if you want to see any other builds, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But have a good one and take care.